As I read aloud your test to you, your job is to annotate. Directions. Read the following passage and then answer the questions that follow. Excerpt from Ida B. and her plan to maximize fun, avoid disaster, and possibly save the world by Catherine Hannigan. Ida, since I know you've read the book, she said to me weakly, like it was her last request, could you please read the first chapter today? Well, I was so shocked and embarrassed, sitting there with my mouth wide open, that I almost couldn't tell that all the other kids were staring at me with their mouths wide open too. Making words into story music like Miss W did was the one thing I wanted to do more than just about anything in the world. But telling a story out loud in front of my class at Ernest B. Lawson Elementary School was nearly the last thing I'd want to do in my entire life. I was so confused about whether I should be happy or scared. I just sat there. Mrs. W. got up, walked over to me, put her face next to my stunned and frozen one, and whispered, Ida, I need your help. And there I was, hypnotized by that woman again. I was like a dog that would go fetch Miss W's stick, even if it was in a snake's hole under a thorn bush that had just been sprayed by a skunk. I looked at Miss W, just scared now, because I knew I was going to do it, but I didn't know how. I know you'll be great, she croaked. And in my head, I was already trotting off, looking for that stick, even though I could smell the stink and the thorns were pricking me. Do you want to sit there or in my chair? Mrs. W asked. I'll sit here, I mumbled. She sat the book down on my desk, brought her chair over, sat down next to me, put her head back, and closed her eyes. Whenever you're ready, Ida, she rasped. I got tingly in my fingers thinking about opening up the book and reading those words out loud, making my voice go high and low, rough and smooth, like I did in my room. But my legs were shivering like they were out in a blizzard, and my stomach was flipping forward, then forward, then backward, thinking about all of those people looking at me and hearing my voice. I closed my eyes, put my right hand on top of the book, and passed it lightly across the cover. It was cool and smooth like a stone from the bottom of the brook, and it stilled me. A whole other world is inside there, I thought to myself, and that's where I want to be. At first, I was worrying about all those other people watching and listening, but after a few minutes, I left that classroom and went into the story. I was in Alexandra's laboratory instead of at school, and I was just saying out loud everything I saw her do or felt her feel. I let my voice tell the way she did it and saw it and felt it. And I was so looking forward to seeing what happened next, I forgot that I was reading. All of a sudden, it was the end of the chapter, and it was like I was snatched out of a dream and couldn't quite recall where I was. I looked around and saw I was sitting at a desk. There was a book in front of me. Kids were staring at me, and I slowly remembered. I glanced over at Mrs. W, and she smiled and whispered, Thank you very much, Ida. That was lovely. I handed Mrs. W the book, and we got back to work, and everything was just like always, except that Mrs. W had to write all the instructions on the board instead of talking them. At study time, when I went to Ronnie's desk, he looked right in my eyes and said, You read real good, Ida. And this time it was me staring down at my shoes like they might disappear if I didn't keep watching them. My throat got stopped up so I could hardly say thank you. Question 1. How does paragraph 2 contribute to the overall structure of the story? A. By providing important details about the setting of the story. B. By highlighting the conflict between the characters. C. By introducing a personal challenge a character faces. D. By describing key events that contribute to the problem. Number 2. In paragraph 2, the phrase, making words into story music means that Mrs. W, A, sings instead of reading aloud. B, asks the class to listen attentively. C, writes lively and imaginative books. D, reads with emotion so the book is interesting. Number 3. Which statement below is the best summary of this passage? A, Ida's teacher is unable to read aloud, so Ida must take her place. Ida battles her nerves the entire time she reads the story aloud. B, at first, Ida is nervous to read aloud. However, she finds that her nervous energy decreases as she is drawn into the plot of the book. C, Ida desperately wants to please her teacher. She decides to take a risk and read aloud a passage to the class. D, Ida is excited to read aloud a challenging text in her classroom. Afterwards, she is congratulated on her performance by a classmate. Number 4. What is Ida's attitude toward her teacher? A, Ida believes that her teacher is unfair because she forces her to read aloud. B, Ida knows her teacher has high expectations and does not want to hurt her. C, Ida wishes to please her teacher, so she tackles the challenge asked of her. D, Ida thinks her teacher has exaggerated her skills, but she does not want to disappoint her. Number 5. Read this sentence from paragraph 4. And there I was, hypnotized by that woman again. What does the word hypnotize mean as it is used in this sentence? A, immediately put into a deep sleep. B, made to follow a request. C, forced to do something unfair. D, purposefully confused. Number 6. The author's decision to tell the story from Ida's point of view. A, illustrates Ida's complex emotions about the experience in class. B, shows how Ida is overly concerned about other people's opinion of her. C, reveals how her classmates celebrate Ida's strong skills. D, portrays Ida's conflicting ideas about whether she should disobey her teacher. Number 7. Which detail from the text best shows how Ida feels after reading aloud to the class? A, at first I was worrying about all those people watching and listening, from paragraph 14. B, I glanced over at Mrs. W and she smiled and whispered, "Thank you very much, Ida. That was lovely." Paragraph 16. C, at study time, when I went to Ronnie's desk, he looked right in my eyes and said, "You read real good, Ida." Paragraph 18. D, my throat got stopped up so I could hardly say thank you. Paragraph 19. Open-ended response. Directions. Compose your written answer for the open-ended response on a separate answer document provided. You may use this space for drafting purposes, but only the writing in the separate answer document will be scored. Answer the following question about Ida B. Number 8. How does paragraph 12 develop a theme of the story? Use at least 2 details from the text to support your answer. Passage 2. Directions. Read the following passage and then answer the questions that follow. The key to giving a great public speech? Practice in front of a dog, by the Washington Post staff. Devin Wallach had written 9 drafts of his speech. He had recited it for his professor, delivered it to his roommate, and practiced it in front of a mirror about 1,500 times. There was one more way that Wallach could prepare. He could rehearse in front of Dexter, an English Springer Spaniel with giant white paws and floppy ears. Obviously, Dexter is not your average public speaking coach. He is one of 8 audience dogs at the Kogod School of Business at American University in Washington, D.C. These pooches volunteer to help students get ready to give public speeches. As Wallach practiced, he knelt to pet Dexter. The dog, reclining on a leather bench, licked Wallach's right hand, the first of its kind. The audience dog's main responsibilities are to listen without judgment. Their support can help students feel less nervous about presentations they must eventually give to humans. The program began last year and is likely the first of its kind at a U.S. university. Karen Martinez, the director of the Kogod Center for Business Communications, helped start the program. She happens to also be the owner of one of the audience dogs, 11-year-old Reggie. She calls Reggie a pinch hitter because he fills in for other dogs when needed. Martinez believes that dogs can have a calming effect on people. The dozens of students who have participated have reported a decrease in nervousness on post-session surveys, she said. She added that the best way to deliver a great speech is to rehearse. How do you get students to practice? Any way you can, she said. Dog or no dog, that makes you a better public speaker. Dexter on duty. The 30-minute audience dog sessions are open to any student at the university. Wallach said he signed up because he wanted more practice. His speech had been chosen from among several submissions, and a few thousand people are expected to be in the audience to hear it. Dexter, of course, was just one dog. What help could he be? Rob Cheek, his owner, said the pup's lifelong love of people, plus a very focused gaze, are his strong suits. The pair was recruited by Martinez after she spotted them walking on the school grounds. Dexter seems to like his volunteer job. Then again, his enthusiasm might have something to do with the bag of chicken treats used in the reading sessions. Wallach briefly laughed during the first of the 2 readings with Dexter. He later explained that it was because the dog just looked completely uninterested in what I was doing. Overall, though, he thought it was helpful to be able to make light of what has been a very serious process. Program is kept on a leash. Not everyone has embraced the program. School administrators had to work around several school policies and rules in order to launch it. For a while, the pooches could only enter the business school through one side door, but that rule has since been loosened. When a rehearsal is in progress, a third person must always be in the room with the dog and the speech-giving student. The dogs must always be leashed and wear an official audience dog red bandana. Students must also sign a form acknowledging the risks of interacting with animals. There are some staff and professors who think that the dogs are a way to attract attention to the school and do not really help the student speeches. When asked whether students come just because the dogs are cute, Martinez firmly said no. Most participants are business students with very little time to spare for cuteness, Martinez said. Wallach agrees with Martinez. It's very much a cost-benefit analysis, he said, using a common phrase in the business world that means weighing the pros and cons of a decision. For him, it would seem the benefits of a session with Dexter was worth the time it took up. An audience full of noches. In the 3 p.m. slot that day is Sasha Gilthorpe. She will deliver the speech before thousands of people at the graduation ceremony for the Public Affairs School. Today, Nosh is here to listen to her speech. He is wearing the official red bandana, which is a bit too big for his little body, and he sits quietly ready to listen. When I felt myself shake a little bit at the end, I look at Nosh and I was like, I'm all good, Gilthorpe said. I'm going to imagine an audience full of noches. Number 9, read this sentence from paragraph 8. The dozens of students who have participated have reported a decrease in nervousness on post-session surveys, she said. This sentence best supports the claim that A, audience dogs help students feel less tense about making a speech. B, students will only decrease their nerves if they practice speaking often. C, Audience dogs are the most effective way to improve public speaking. D, public speaking is a skill that can be improved in a short time frame. Number 10, based on paragraph 14, embraced most closely means A, held tightly, B, protested loudly, C, understood deeply, D, supported fully. Number 11, which sentence provides the best clue for the meaning of the word embraced as used in paragraph 14? A, for a while, the Pooches could only enter the business school through one side door, but that rule has since been loosened, from paragraph 14. B, when a rehearsal is in progress, a third person must always be in the room with the dog and the speech-giving student, from paragraph 14. C, the dogs must always be leashed and wear an official audience dog red bandana. Students must also sign a form acknowledging the risks of interacting with animals. Paragraph 14. D, there are some staff and professors who think the dogs are a way to attract attention to the school and do not really help student speeches. Paragraph 15. Number 12. According to the text, what about dogs make them a helpful audience? A, dogs are cute and students enjoy seeing them. B, dogs will listen without reacting positively or negatively. C, dogs do not interrupt by clapping or asking questions. D, dogs will listen silently and pay attention carefully. Number 13. Paragraphs 18 and 19 contribute to the article by A, describing why audience dogs are effective at preparing individuals to give a public speech. B, explaining how an audience dog was able to transform someone to feel completely confident when speaking. C, providing an additional example of a person's positive experience working with an audience dog. D, contrasting how one audience dog was more effective than all the other audience dogs. Open-ended response. Directions. Compose your written answer for the open-ended response on the separate answer document provided. You may use this space for drafting purposes, but only the writing in the separate answer document will be scored. Answer the following question about the key to giving a great public speech. Practice in front of a dog. Number 14. How does the section Dexter on duty support the main idea of the article? Use at least 2 details to support your answer. Directions. Both Ida B and the key to giving a great public speech, practice in front of a dog, to answer questions 15 and 16. Number 15. Which statement best describes how Ida's experience speaking in public differs from Wallach's experience? A, Ida becomes less nervous when she is drawn into the plot of the story she's reading, whereas Wallach feels less nervous after he rehearses his speech. B, Ida completely relaxes when reading aloud, whereas Wallach still feels incredibly nervous about performing in public. C, Ida is reading aloud a story to her class that she wrote, whereas Wallach is reading a speech to someone else wrote. D, Ida becomes more confident based on her classmates' reactions, whereas Wallach becomes more confident because of the dog's lack of judgment. Number 16. What advice would Karen Martinez from The Key to Giving a Great Public Speech, Practice in Front of a Dog, likely give Ida from Ida B about public speaking? A, being nervous about speaking or reading in front of an audience is difficult for adults to overcome. B, the key to overcoming your fears about public speaking is through preparation and rehearsing consistently. C, you should not be afraid to speak in public and can easily overcome your fear. D, you can decrease your nervous feelings by enjoying what you are reading or speaking about.